Unfortunately, the Vikings lost Kirk Cousins for the year with a ruptured Achilles tendon. And so insert fifth round pick out of BYU, Jaren Hall. I'm going to give you my thoughts on why I don't think they're quite out of this. And who knows? We might not even see newly acquired Josh Dobbs. Before I get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow our regular show at Off the Edge Show. This is one half of Off the Edge, and I'm Jake Ellen Bogan. All right, let's get into it. So Jaren Hall is somebody that we've talked about on this channel. We talked about on the Off the Edge show. And he's somebody that I've been very high on throughout the draft process and even going into him eventually becoming a Minnesota Viking. Now, there are some videos on the channel about Jaren Hall, but in case you aren't familiar, his preseason, he was 26 of 48 for 264 yards, a touchdown, interception, and he was sacked 9 times. In the regular season, however, he came in after the injury to Kirk Cousins and went 3 of 4 for 23 yards and an 88.5 passer rating. Now, that stat line, even both of them, you could say is way too small of a sample size to know what you have in Jaren Hall. And so I'm going to break this down for you, going back to my original analysis and my scouting report on him that I made back in March. This is a dynamic dual threat quarterback that prefers to throw it more than run it. That's the first thing that I saw when watching Jaren Hall's film. Now, obviously, he's in the NFL. The game's quicker. He can't necessarily just take off and run anytime he wants. Edge defenders are now running 4-3s. So Jaren Hall is probably going to use his legs a little bit more than maybe he wants to because of the fact that it is his best case to kind of keep things going. And he is a rookie. He is inexperienced. And so this is probably what the Vikings are going to want for him to try to keep those plays available. It's probably going to be a fairly dink and dunk type of game for Jaren Hall upcoming, and just any game upcoming, for that matter. So that's the first thing. I think you have a dynamic dual threat quarterback, but somebody who's probably more suited to throw it than run it. And that's what he wants to do when he's comfortable. Who knows if he's going to be comfortable when he has the opportunity to get going. He's surprisingly better with his feet when he sets it than he is off platform. So this is actually a interesting little thing that I noticed with Lamar Jackson, is that there were a lot of people that said Lamar Jackson isn't a pocket passer. He is a runner. He throws on the run. That's what he wants to do. And I kept saying with Lamar Jackson's analysis coming out of Louisville, I saw a guy who was more so a pocket passer that wanted to go out on the run and make plays while using his legs, but he wanted to set his feet. And he actually had good footwork in the pocket. And we're seeing that this year more than ever, playing in more of a pro-style offense than the ones that he's played in previously. So that's an interesting little tidbit there, going back from my analysis, is that I think Jaren Hall at the end of the day just really wants to set his feet. He's not quite comfortable throwing off platform. He wasn't comfortable with it at BYU. I can't see it being any different in the NFL. Now, he still will have those throws. He's just not as comfortable as, setting his feet. And you can see that when he has time to set his feet, he will. I will say this, his athleticism shows he's very dangerous on the ground. Now, I don't know how well this translates to the NFL, but just based on what I watched at BYU, very, very dangerous athlete. Can make plays with his legs and extend drives and pick up those first downs and be an absolute pill for defenses if you're not game planning for him. So that means whoever plays him this year, you might need a quarterback spy. You might. And if you don't have one, he can make you pay, as long as it doesn't get sacked. He got sacked 9 times in preseason. And of course, his offensive line is going to be hopefully better than what he had in preseason. He makes really quick decisions. This is somebody that it's a quick process for him. Now, I'll get into the second half of this in that, I don't think he's quite confident making full field reads yet. This is where Kevin O'Connell and his offensive prowess will come in and try to help him. Okay. He's Going to probably have a lot of bootlegs, a lot of mirrored routes to keep things, calm for Jaren Hall. I'm thinking, half field progressions, which is pretty much something that he was doing beforehand. It will make the offense a little bit more, actually, it'll make the offense a lot more predictable, but I expect somebody like Kevin O'Connell, who I have a lot of respect for, will be able to get things going with him. We'll try to make things easy. I like those play action bootlegs. This should be a lot of rushing with Cam Akers, with Alex Madison. I think that's the approach here. Ty Chandler, you're going to want to run the football, set up the play action, and then let, Jaren Hall do what he can do. He's got a good enough arm for the NFL. I think too often we see utilized and slung around like it's nothing is this idea where a quarterback has a noodle arm. I mean, we see it all the time, folks, but I don't really see that with Jaren Hall. He's got some good zip on his fastball, and he can throw. So if he does have a deep shot to, whether that's Addison, whether that's KJ Osborne, whether that's Tristan Jackson, Brandon Powell, TJ Hawkinson, he's going to take that. And I'm not saying he's going to do it a ton, because I think he's still going to try to play some, ball control style game manager football. At the same time, don't the Vikings want to see what they have in the kid? I wouldn't be surprised if they let it loose with him. He really excels at hitting the back shoulder. And the thing that really stood out to me is when I was watching the tape earlier this year, he and Puka Nacua were just one-on-one. They always were on the same page. He's going to lean on somebody in that room. My guess, it's going to be TJ Hawkinson. You have a bigger body target. You have a guy who can work the middle of the field. Young quarterbacks, I always say safety, essentially their safety net is going to be that tight end. And TJ Hawkinson can make plays after the catch. So I like the idea of, if you're a fantasy, guy, you're a better, you want to take a stance on this. I honestly think that makes a lot of sense is, TJ Hawkinson reaps the rewards. Maybe he gets more targets than ever because of Jaren Hall, but teams could expect that. And maybe we see more Jordan Addison. It will depend, but that back shoulder fade that he kept hitting with Puka Nacua on tape was a thing of beauty. The guy has really good, placement on his ball. And I think that's something to be said. I mean, when he gets to step into his throw, it's some of the best ball placement I saw in the draft. I mean, my comp for him was kind of like, I don't want to say poor man's, but he was very similar to Russell Wilson to me. And I'm not saying he's going to be Russell Wilson coming out, but you kind of see the same type of things. I think Russell Wilson was a better thrower of the football off platform. But you do see kind of similar things with Jaren Hall. So I'll say that. I will also say, I think he fell to I had a second round grade on him. First off, I think he fell to the fifth round because of his shoulder. If I'm not wrong there, believe he was dealing with some an injury issue or what have you. And so I think it was a shoulder issue. He didn't fall because of talent. I mean, this guy to me is a second round talent. He was talked about as high as a third round talent for most people. Fifth rounder was a really good pick by the Vikings, who did have Kellen Mond, by the way. They ended up letting him go. But again, ball placement, fantastic. Pocket presence, it's there. Sometimes he's a little too patient. We saw that in preseason. Held on to the ball, one of the longest of any quarterback in preseason. So that's important there. One thing I like about him going back to BYU, doesn't turn over the ball much. Now, NFL, different story, right? But he really didn't turn over the ball much in college. I thought he made some really quick decisions, some good decisions, not making full field reads, to be fair, but I thought he did a nice job of protecting the football while at BYU. One thing I put in all caps, the floor feels higher than most quarterbacks in the draft. That's what you probably want to hear if you're a Vikings fan. This guy has a higher floor than most of the quarterbacks that were in this draft. And you just saw what Will Levis did last week. Who's to say, Jaren Hall can't do something similar? He's not the same quarterback, but he does have the weapons. And when he gets Justin Jefferson back, That's going to be very interesting because if he has a good enough game without Justin Jefferson, and whenever Justin Jefferson does come back, there's a chance Josh Dobbs isn't going to see the field. Now, I'm not making a prediction here one way or another. I'm telling you my thoughts on it and why I do think it's definitely fair to give Jaren Hall a look. I'm not saying he's going to be the franchise quarterback, as soon as he steps on the field. But I think it's fair to give him a look. And lastly, I did put he could be a real franchise quarterback if properly developed. And by him going to the Minnesota Vikings, I like his odds. Now, think about this, okay? This weekend, they have the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be in Atlanta, and this team is going to be starting Taylor Heineke. This is going to be a 1 o'clock game, okay? This is a golden opportunity for a young quarterback to show up and show what he can do. And by the way, this Falcons team that has given, some of the younger quarterbacks fits in this league, you go back and you see what, Bryce Young did, and, CJ Stroud was good, but it was probably one of his worst games of the season. Then you see what Will Levis did, raises an eyebrow or two. So, I think Jaren Hall has a okay performance. I'm not going to say he goes out and balls out, but if he does, it wouldn't shock me. He's got a lot around him. I think the Vikings are better than their record indicates at 4-4, and it's playoff time. Even though Cousins is out, Jaren Hall can do enough moving forward where if he doesn't let go of this starting job, he could have the Vikings moving on from Kirk Cousins after the season. Now, there was always a question, but with the Kirk Cousins injury, there was also a question whether or not now is it easier to bring him back. He won't be as expensive because of the injury. And we hope of course, I wish him all the best. But if that's the case, Jaren Hall has an interesting opportunity here. And we can't take light of it. And I think Vikings fans, I've seen some that are optimistic, some that aren't. I get it. It's not an ideal situation. But he is 25 years old. And it's not like he's 5'8". He's 6 foot tall. He's 207 pounds. You'd like a little bit more weight, maybe 6'2", 6'3" at least. But at the end of the day, size is not a skill. Jaren Hall has what it takes to potentially win this football game on the road. It's not going to be easy. No one said it was going to be. But he's going to have guys like TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison that can help him out. And the run game's going to have to do their thing as well. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Drop them in the comment section below. And be sure to never miss another show of Off the Edge when we either go live on Bleacher Report or we drop it here on the channel. You can follow us at Off the Edge Show. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow my co-host at Cameron Lynch 50. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, folks.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.